That's an old technique of the CIA, is to establish a type of civic organization which would be involved in monitoring elections and things like that. And the first one that I know of was NAMFREL in the Philippines. They established that one around 1950-51 as part of the counterinsurgency against the Huks, the guerrilla movement of the time, because we wanted to have a vehicle for electing our man president of the Philippines. And we did it through this organization, NAMFREL. NAMFREL stands for National Association for Free Elections, I think. Yeah, free elections, when we were financing the whole thing. And NAMFREL was very successful. And our man, Ramon Magsaysay, was elected president, I think it was 52, 53. And unfortunately, he was killed in a plane crash, 57. And so then we switched to Marcos and various other people like that. But NAMFREL never faded away. And in 1986, remember the elections of 1986, which Marcos tried to steal? Well, NAMFREL was alive and well. And they were the ones who denounced the fraud by Marcos. And they then inspired the movement of People Power, which forced him to resign and brought Cory Aquino in as president. So NAMFREL was alive and well. They tried to copy it in Panama. They sent the president of the Chamber of Commerce in the early 80s, or 84 or there, more or less, in preparation for the 87 elections, I think it was. They sent him out to Panama to study the way NAMFREL worked, so he could come back to Panama and establish another one there. And so he did. In Panama, it was called Cruzada Cívica, or Civic Crusade. And this was what was used against the Noriega forces in the streets. It became what they call Rabi Blanca there. You know, the upper-class white people in Panama. It was one of those organizations. But they did take to the streets, and you can remember the pictures on the covers of the magazines, you know, when they had the riots, and Noriega was not overthrown then. But they tried everything in Panama. The CIA was running candidates of its own all through the 1980s, trying to get Noriega out. Maybe not all through the 80s. No, his utility ended about 86, 87.
Because he was working with the CIA.
Yes, yes, it was important for the Contra operation in Nicaragua. But by 87, up to here in Panamanian politics, and I'm sure they are, using these different types of organizations. So the covert action operations go on. And as a matter of fact, in not only in Bulgaria did they overturn this government. I didn't even finish that story, but what happened is all this money from National Endowment for Democracy went in, and they fomented student strikes and demonstrations, trade union strikes, massive street protests, and not only was the money put in by the National Endowment for Democracy, but also Paul Weyrich's Free Congress Foundation all got involved. And this is part of the Christian right, you know. He's the man who runs all these different organizations out of the same address in Washington, D.C. And this Free Congress Foundation also got going in there, I guess in coordination with what the CIA was doing, what NED was doing, and so forth. And so the elections were in June. The communists had, or the former communists had won. By the end of November, they were out because they made the country ungovernable. 1991, they did the same thing in Albania. They had elections there. Free, fair, no fraud. Former communists won. The United States got in there through these different organizations and the CIA, naturally, and they made Albania ungovernable.
Chile, same thing.
Chile, same thing. Brazil in the early 60s, same thing. We were doing the same thing when I was in Ecuador. In fact, we had two coups, two unconstitutional changes of government when I was there, and they were largely due to what we were doing. And by the time I left, after 3 years, we had what we wanted, a four-man military dictatorship that was carrying on a very strong repression against the left.